Well, here I am, back with another video. If you want a slightly more thorough rundown on what the series is, please check out the previous video, but in short, I am playing every Sonic game and reviewing them all. Last video was covering 1991, this video will be covering 1992. Before I start the next segment, something I realised was that I hadn't set any concrete rules for this challenge, so here they are. Number 1, save states are allowed, however they must only be used at the start of levels or when checkpoints are available. This is just due to how many games there are and how long they can be if played properly. I will try to get a true experience, but I have limited time and I'm willing to mildly cheat to get further. Number 2, built-in cheats or third-party cheats are not allowed. This is just to get a more balanced experience. Well, yes, the previous rule is mildly contradictory. We have to make compromises in life, and this is one of many. Number 3, an effort must be made to complete a game when applicable. The fact is that some Sonic games are just not fun to play, they can be bad, buggy, or just not your cup of tea. But I want to truly experience every Sonic game, so I'll always try to beat the final boss. If I like a game enough, I will even consider 100% of it when applicable. Those are basically my rules as of now. As time goes on, I may revise them or break them depending on context, but I will go into every single game trying to follow this mindset. Now on to the first, and only, Sonic game released in 1992. Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Just like the first game, it was a success out of the gate. It sold over 6 million units and was the second best selling game for the Mega Drive, with Sonic 1 beating it out. The game was well received from the public and critics, with it receiving a score of 88% to 93% depending on which score you use. And I've got to say, the first thing I thought while playing this game is that it's good. It's really good. It did just about everything better than the first game, that I find it truly embodied what a sequel should be. So let's talk about what the first thing I liked so much about it. Sonic. Sonic is so much better to control. I actually marked one down because I didn't like it, partially because of the lack of spin dash, which I found grating. But the spin dash in this game makes the game really fun. No longer do you find yourself doing weird shit trying to build up speed to get up those ramps that were annoying to go up previously. Instead you just hold down and start spamming those buttons. I also found Sonic was far less glitchy on slight inclines and felt more complete in terms of controls. It was just refreshing after getting mildly frustrated with the last game's control. Now, one of my favourite additions to this game was Tails. You wouldn't think a mindless AI that kind of just jumps after you would be useless and instantly disregarded, but I constantly found him dealing damage to bosses and killing enemies when I missed. Most importantly, he collected rings. Yep, the lifeblood of the game. The thing that keeps you from facing death can easily be collected by your AI partner. I found him constantly picking up the odd 1 or 2 rings in clutch situations where I was running low on rings and was more so avoiding death than trying to chase rings. If I had to pick a favourite between Spin Dash and Tails, I'd ask you to kill me because I could just not pick between the two. Now another part of Sonic 2 that I found was just better than one in every way, that was level design. Sonic's about going fast as fuck, but in the first game you had a bit of trial and error and had to know how to go fast on levels, which was just tedious. Sonic 2 doesn't do that. Instead, the levels are clearly designed around gathering speed and holding right in many parts of dash pads, loop-de-loops and springboards laid throughout levels. This just felt more natural to play and really lends itself to what you want to do as Sonic. Of course there was a skill element to it. You really needed a good reaction time, as you could find yourself encountering sudden enemies, traps or areas where you don't want to be going fast. That doesn't mean the stages were perfect. I'd say up to the end of Oil Oceans, levels just did everything better than the first game. But Metropolis Sloten is the first area that I can confidently say I did not enjoy any part of. To start off with, it introduces 3 of the worst enemies, or at least the 3 worst placement of enemies in the game. The crab cunt, the mantis cunt, and the weird little star cunt. Now I always encountered the crab at the absolute worst moments, near ledges, usually after a parkour section that I didn't want to go for again. They would just show up unexpectedly, they would just punch me off, and I'd have to do the often stressful and difficult parkour again. I don't like this use of enemy placement. I find enemies relying on the element of surprise already a terrible experience, but if the punishment for not accurately predicting them is having to go back in the level a little bit, I will go apeshit. Metropolis Zone is one of the only levels where I had to constantly take breaks to cool myself off because I was ready to develop a slur for crabs and mantises. Now the mantises, all things considered, they weren't terrible placement wise. I just found them as annoying as fuck to encounter. They would essentially throw their little sword arm thing straight forward, which I got used to predicting, but they fucking boomeranged around, hit me where I least expected it. Also, they weren't as infuriating as the crabs, but I still really didn't like them. Now onto the MVP of the most annoying fuckers out there. Star cunts. I refuse to Google their real name because I don't believe they deserve the dignity of having their real names used. These bastards had the most annoying tack where they would suicide and send out 5 little spike things. You would think, oh, it can only go in 5 directions, can't be that bad. It was that bad. I found myself constantly getting hit by these somehow. I don't know what I did wrong, but they were always hitting me. What makes it worse is that these bastards are always there at the worst possible moment, like when you were going up the screw things, or when there isn't room to be jumping and zooming around. These little shits were the cause of the most deaths I encountered beyond boss fights. At this point I hadn't died that much. I had a couple deaths to aquatic ruins, the odd death in Hilltop, and even some deaths due to glitches in the Oil Ocean, but I could all count them on my hands still. Metropolis Zone at minimum tripled my death count, probably more like quadrupled it. And unlike the rest of the game, where levels were only 2 acts, Metropolis Zone was 3 fucking acts. I don't have good things to say about this level, it's not a happy level for me, and I'm so thankful I'll never have to experience it again. I had such a bad time of it that it makes up for nearly half my playtime on this game, despite the fact that it only makes up 16% of the game. Now the other levels were fucking amazing. I have nothing bad to say about any other level of the game. I loved how Casino Night Zone really stuck to Casino theme with the level littered with pinball based design, really lending itself to more luck based design while still rewarding skill. I loved Hilltop Zone's use of seesaws and gondolas. It was nice having to slow down and think a bit while taking the scenery. I just really loved all the zones and stages except for Cursed Metropolis Zone, fuck you. Now I haven't mentioned these yet, but the stages following Metropolis Zone are actually really good, as they dynamically flow together. You start off with the Sky Chase, which, while a bit hard to get used to at first, is actually a nice change of pace. It's nice to not be on the ground, but rather flying through the sky, and I find it's the first real case of tails being intentionally used by the game. As you eventually make your way through Sky Chase, you find your plane getting shot and hit by lasers, so you jump off the plane onto Wing Fortress. Now Wing Fortress is a bit of a bitch to navigate, but it was once again really nice, especially seeing as you could clearly see the relevance to why you're here, unlike most other levels. As you make your way through the level, you'll find yourself beating another boss and jumping off the ship back onto the plane where you would jump onto Death Egg. Now on the ship you have 2 back-to-back boss fights where you fight Mecha Sonic and then the Death Egg robot. These 3 levels back to back were a really nice experience, as they have a cohesive story going on and each level offered something very different from the rest of the game. So overall, I loved this game's level design. I found it was better than the first game in nearly every way, and found myself just enjoying it a bunch more. But I didn't find the game's aesthetics better. I didn't really find them amazing at all, with it sometimes being a struggle to tell what is going on at certain points. If I had to say, it was a bit worse than the first game. I loved how the first looked. I don't know really why I found them just more of a struggle in this game. The same could be said for the music. I wasn't really feeling it this time, like it was good, but it wasn't amazing. I wasn't sitting there wanting to enjoy it, I just couldn't help myself from comparing it to the first game, which was just so much better in regards to the music. Now onto the final part I have to say anything about this game. The bosses. I didn't really talk about them for one, but that's because I just didn't really care for them in the first game. That's different for this game. The bosses were just so much better well designed. I felt like there was an extra level of strategy, of waiting and trying to find the pattern and executing a plan. They really felt like they helped develop Eggman's character, not just as a moustached cunt, but a smart moustached cunt. I really did enjoy every single boss fight, no matter how many times I died to them. They just felt really fun to play, and it was so rewarding to finally beat them. If I had to pick a favourite, it would be the Mecha Sonic fight, just because I really love Mecha Sonic's design. Even if it wasn't the hardest or most fought engaging fight, though I also really like the boss fights in Aquatic Ruin Zone and Wing Fortress Zone. Now before I sum this all up and put the game in a tier list, I thought I would clarify each tier on the list just to give some context on how I'm judging these games. Starting from the bottom, D tier is for the most unfun, un-Sonic games out there. The games that I genuinely wanted to quit halfway through, or actually did quit halfway through. C tier is for games that, while alright, just didn't have anything to offer and just don't have the meat for me to say were good games. B tier is for games that were good but also had some outstanding flaws that just took away from the experience. A tier is for games that were really good but had some flaw or two that I just didn't like. S tier is for games that were basically perfection, minus maybe some minor nitpicks or flaws that weren't that bad. So with that, I will be bumping up Sonic Eraser and Waku Waku Sonic Patrol Car to C tier, while Sonic 1 will stay in B tier. And to sum up Sonic 2, the game is really damn good, and truly is a great sequel to the first game. The levels are all much better than the first game, although Metropolis Zone can suck my dick. The gameplay additions such as Tails and Spin Dash are so good at just making the game feel perfect to play. The music isn't perfect, or better, it's still good though. The same applies to the aesthetic, which I didn't vibe with much either. The bosses were just a straight up improvement and amazing, and I had great fun beating them. Now it's really hard for me to pick where to put the game. I want to put it in both low S tier and high A tier. I think for now it will go in A tier, but as time goes on I might consider pushing up to S tier. And that's it for the video. Surprisingly, 1992 only had one Sonic game released. Thank you for watching, please like and subscribe.